What's cracking, mi gente? You guys know this your boy D once again, right? Coming through some love and a little bit of knowledge. Today, man, we got a banger. We have a banger. I know I haven't dropped content in a minute. Like I told you guys, I've been working. I'm a little busy. I have life coming through here and there, but you guys already know when I'm ready to drop content, I drop nothing but bangers. And today, it's a well-asked video. People have been asking me to do a little bit more hood content, a little bit more hood stories, and today is the day we're gonna tell one of them. Okay, so Honcho asked me just recently, and then there was Blue Cookie. There's a few of them. Shout out to all my subscribers, man. You guys are the motive of this channel. You guys are the motor. You guys keep this channel running. So keep this. Make sure you guys, when you guys see this video, you guys share it. You guys like it. You guys leave a comment. You guys subscribe to it. If you're not subscribed to, share it with anybody. Share it with your family member. Share it with somebody that might want to have a laugh, because we always here to have a good time, to have a laugh. And today, as you guys can tell by the title, man, we have a banger neighborhood, San Francisco, the city. I've been asked who was or which Norteño neighborhood, which northerner barrio gave you the hardest, basically the most headaches, the hardest problems, or anything regarding my neighborhood, my clique, 20th Street and MS13. So I'm gonna dip and dab to one and then give another one also. And if I don't get to tell the whole thing in this video, there will be a second one coming. But I will start off by saying I don't mean any disrespect to anybody by this video. I don't mean to minimize anybody on this video. It's just my story. And I don't do it to glorify violence, to glorify gangbang. I do it so we can prevent a little bit of violence that's been transpiring in our city, man. We have a beautiful city, so let's get to it. When I start gangbanging, the time I came around, right, it was early thousands. So when I came to the United States, as you know, I'm Salvadorian. I was born in Salvador. When I came to the United States, we already had 20th Street established. My uncle was part of one of the founders. At that time, gentlemen, when I start coming through the hood, kicking in, trying to be part of the hood, the barrio that was given the hardest and the biggest problem at that time was LNS. LNS 24th in LNS. So LNS, if I'm not mistaken, and if I am, I apologize, but LNS, I believe it stands for Locos Northsider or Loco Norteños, right? So at that time, LNS was a big neighborhood. I mean, 24th always been a kind of a huge neighborhood, but because it was big, there was a lot of indictments, there was a lot of case catching, and there was a lot of things going on with that neighborhood. But when I first came in the early thousands, LNS had, if I give it or take, probably 300 to something like that soldier. It was a big neighborhood. You gotta understand, it was a big neighborhood. They used to post up, at least that I remember, was they used to post up. And 24th, there used to be a McDonald's there. I think there still is, if I'm not mistaken. 24th and Mission. If you guys see my thing move, that's because the cat is jumping up and down the stick, man. But LNS used to post up right there, and basically they would have that McDonald's. Then across the street from that, they had a little alleyway on the other side where the bus stop was at. And then behind the McDonald's, there used to be another alley there, right? And then across from there, in front of the McDonald's, there used to be a bus station. So across from them, like right in front of them, there used to be the train station where you will come out of the train. And on front of them, coming this way, if you stand in the McDonald's right here in this corner, if you're standing there, then they had the bus station going down. And they used to post up right there too. And they used to post up on a liquor store that was on your other side. But you always catching there around there, either in those alleys, kicking it on the bar station, on the McDonald's, or behind the alley of the McDonald's, or in front of. You always used to have in there. They were noticeable back then. They always used to wear. Some of them were red, but you would tell that they were gang member. You'd be able to tell, especially for our generation. That's one thing that we were told, how to spot the enemy or the ops or the person that you guys were beefing with. So we were able to tell who was who. And even then, they were, like I said, they used to be 5, 6, 7. Some they used to be like 10 to 11, 12 deep. But they will be spread out on all four corners. So you would tell. At that time, we had a lot of issues with them because they had a lot of hitters. I don't take nothing away from them. They had hitters back then. You had, I would throw a couple names out there of people that I heard name ringing. We had also from LNS. We had Little Trigger from LNS. We have few other hitters from the LNS. There was a couple that Dopey. There was a Goofy. There was a few of them that were known to be with the business, either because the homeboys had done time with them on the county, or because we had actually run across them and have either got into fights or into any type of violent matters. You know what I mean? So at that time, that was the neighborhood that was making the most noise. You always would have them come down. And the thing about Frisconians is when we used to bang, a lot of people used to yell out the neighborhood, LNS fool or 24 fool, and we knew they wouldn't tell their names, of course, but we knew the neighborhood. So there was a lot of that going on. And when I say they were giving them headaches, they were sliding pretty often. They were sliding pretty often at that time. And you guys gotta understand something. 20th Street never been a big neighborhood like that. MS and never been a big ass neighborhood. It's always been under the most we ever had probably at that time were like 150 to 180 soldiers. And you got to keep in mind, not all of them were with the business. Not all of them. You had a handful of dudes that would come down to the neighborhood. There were dope sellers, or there were car stealers, or they had a different mentality. There were what I call passive gang members, which mean they will contribute to the hood in a different manner, by bringing weapons, by bringing dope, by bringing money to the hood, to the treasury and stuff like that. So you never actually had, like, we have hitters, but there was not like a bunch out of the 150. There would, let's say, there were not 80 or 70 hitters. No, that would be me lying, and I don't do that. So I had a few encounter with them in high school and in middle school at that time. We had a few encounter with the younger generation, of course. And that's why I said that they were the hardest. The one that used to give us the hardest headaches because there was always LNS members there. Yeah, you had a couple Brian dudes. You had a couple 26 dudes. But that neighborhood 26 and Mission, they have more beef with the Army Street projects. They have more issues with them than with us. So they used to get it bad for both angles, Army Street and us. But they weren't like a big neighborhood. They weren't really a threat like that. You know what I mean? They weren't really exposed. And I started bumping into heads early with them during my middle school years, around going to Ever Middle School. And then we had James Lake, which was like another middle school, but that was known for Norteños going there a lot. Ever was a Norteño too. They were deep. I won't lie, they were deep. They had a few individuals that later on became non-gang members, but you have a few individuals around that area that we used to beef with that would claim 24th, right? So I have probably a couple encounters, violent encounters with them, to the point where we start thinking that, damn, if we don't put a stop to this fool, if we don't start hitting this fool bags aggressively, these fools are gonna hurt us eventually. Cause they will come down, they will hit us up, they will spray, they will do their thing, then they will go up, and but they were a little bit smart. At least the older generation was a little smart. As soon as they know they were either hit or try to hit a MS gang member, they knew our policy. They knew we were the type of hood that was like, you touch us tonight, early during the day, like around 5, 6. That night we knocking on your door. And I'm not saying this as a bragging right or nothing, and I'm not saying the older Sureños neighborhood wouldn't like that, but at least for us, it was a mando. It was mando for us to show a force, a power, to show the unity we had. Like if you touch one of our homeboys, we knocking on your door the very same day. If it doesn't happen the very same day because of the police activity and everything, we're knocking on your door the very next day. But regardless of anything, we were knocking at your door. We didn't let months, weeks, or years go by. We wasn't like that. We were the type of individuals that you touch one of us, we're knocking at your door instantly if we can. They knew that, so they will go and do their thing, and then they will go inside, and probably they will call the little homies or everybody outside and be like, "Hey, fool, don't knock them out. We think we got one of them," and then whatever transpired. But at that time, when I started coming in, 22nd and Brian was making a name for themselves. And the reason why I always had said 22nd Brian was a little bit more militant, a little bit more guerrillero minded, was because of their foundation, their forefathers. A lot of them dudes who were ex-military or ex-guerrilleros from El Salvador. They came down from El Salvador. Even it was rumor. And I say it was rumor of two. We knew of one, maybe two individuals. But it was rumors that when MS13 started coming around, they had dudes that became Brian at that time. But see, we had an issue with the Bryans. Two of the older members, I don't know if they were founders, but I know two of the early members of them were once upon a time homeboys, were MS13. Here comes the dilemma, at least what we knew as. So when they were homeboys from LA, when they were in prison at that time in the 90s, early thousands, you gotta understand that early 80s, late 90s, I think it came down like in 95, 92. That's when the agreement took over about Salvadorians, homeboys from the mess running as Sureños. Because before that, if you were Salvadorian, Honduran, Guatemalan, Mexican, Cuban, whatever type of race, they have you classified as other. So MS was being run as others. They didn't run with the homies in the initial prison system. We used to run others. We didn't run with the homies. We weren't under the umbrella of the SUR, of the M. At that initial point when we start going to prison, we were under the paisas of others. We used to consider CDC and self-consider us paisas of others. So it was a choice. You either go paisa or you either go other. So a lot of homeboys had the mentality, and they had saw a lot of the 80s and 90s homeboys that were busted for like 8 years, 10 years, had that mentality that the Sureños didn't care for us, didn't have much appreciated. So a lot of homies that got deported in the early or late 90s to El Salvador and then came back and established themselves in Frisco, they were like, fuck that, we're not going to claim a 13. When the 13 got blessed on us, we didn't bought our way into it. So for people to say, oh, MS, what was bought their 13? There was no way us buying it. We didn't bought the 13, homie. It was stole upon us behind an agreement that came down because, one, the MN knew the potential we have. Plus, we had the numbers and the soldiers to do their bidding. They saw a win-win situation. We can lock this neighborhood up. There's going to become an international. That's what we see right now, the potential. And we can put our hands in their business, grow our tentacles and reach every other state where we don't have Sureños establishment. They were smart. They didn't do it just because, oh, we're gonna bless you guys. You guys can level 13 now. And in California, you guys can pay taxes. Do it. No, they saw the potential to what MS was gonna become as an international, multiple international game, and they saw that they could have more power, more soldiers, and they know. Plus, they knew that MS, a lot of MS homeboys were always ruthless. They was always eager to prove their value. You know what I mean? So they always were getting sent on crash dummy missions. They were always being sent on the first missions that they had. So that's the reason why we always hated it. So when the homies got deported over there and came back, some of them established in Northern California. A lot of them dudes was like, nah, chales, we're not following the 13 no more. We're gonna become either MS14. And that's when the MS14 started coming about around 2001, 2002, 2003. It died down like around 2004 and 5. But when it became to start making noises, and it was when I first started game banging around 2002 and 2003. That's when it was ugly, because they were trying to establish themselves as a neighborhood. But see, Brian didn't actually. Brian was already established as a Norteño neighborhood. They didn't really want to take it, but they used to kick it right there in Bryan Street too, between 22nd and 21st and Bryan. They used to kick it on those areas. See, you gotta remember, in Bryan Street there used to be a soccer field back then. See, and here is what the hate of the Bryan comes to towards us. And if I misplace a fact or I missay a fact, you're all more than welcome to come and say, bro, I don't think that's true. Come on. But what I was told, and at least what I lived through, that's what I remember. But you got to remember, it's been over 20 some years. So I remember pretty much a lot, but I won't get everything right. But I do know this for a fact. Back then, between 20th and Bryan, there used to be a soccer field there. We used to play there back in the 90s, before Bryan became a thing. We used to claim, before we start claiming 20th and Mission, we used to be at the park all the time. So the homeboys from that generation, like the first generations and the first initial wave of the second generation, which I was part of, we used to claim Bryan Street, 20th and Bryan. So we had a saying that we used to say to the 22nd and Bryan guys. They used to irk their fucking feelings. They used to get them angry. And we used to tell them, we are the original Bryanteros, homie. We're the original Bryans. You fools are copycats. You fools came out of our ribs. And the reason why we used to say that, which was a fact, because we start claiming Bryan way before they became Barrio. Way before 22nd became a Barrio. Of course, we didn't claim 22nd. But the street in itself was Bryan. We used to be a lot of them over there, because we had a soccer field around there. And Salvadorians and Paisitas wouldn't know, used to always play soccer on the thing. I haven't seen a thing that closed off that soccer and made it buildings. But before, there used to be a soccer field back in the days in Bryan right there. So that's why we used to tell them that we're the original Bryans, fool. You fools are our kids. You fools are our son. We're the original Bryans. Of course, then they didn't like it. They used to hate it. And the original four founder, Bryan dudes, know that we used to post up in 20th and Bryan. Never in 22nd and Bryan. I'm not saying in 22nd and Bryan, but the street as a Bryan, we used to claim it. So then we moved to the Mission. Then we went to Little Park. Okay. So we had that animosity towards them. But a lot of that animosity came towards when two homeboys that we find out were ex-homeboys were in cahoots with the Bryan, and we're trying to become a Barrio as a Norteño Barrio, which we saw their point, that they had went through a humiliation phase, they had went through a phase in prison that they didn't agree, didn't like. So of course they would have had some type of animosity towards the program and towards the people. So they decided to become a whole different brand, and they became Norteño. Some of them started calling themselves MS14 because they wanted to still claim MS, but they didn't want to claim the 13. As they were in Northern California, they were like, we're gonna claim the 14, but we're not attaching ourselves to the NF. We just MS14 because we're here in San Francisco. Because originally they were gonna call themselves MS4415, that's their area code, but then They shorter and they called themselves the 14 MS-14, which was like a punch in the gut towards us. It was like a right hook towards basically mocking us by still claiming MS, but now claiming a number that was associated with our enemies. So the homeboys were trying to like a little bit of this, you know what I mean? Like we MS-14. And the crazy part is that Bryan at that time was growing as a neighborhood. You had catrachos, a lot of catrachos are from Bryan. You had a lot of Salvadorans from Bryan. You had Mexicans too, but the first generation waves were catrachos and homies. And the way they moved, precise and militant, them fools were been to the war. You gotta remember the back before all this stuff took place here. A lot of Hondurans, a lot of Salvadorans got trained by the government of the United States when they opened las escuelas de las Centroamericas, the Central American schoolings of war, when they would train snipers, that would train rebels. The same thing that happened in El Salvador when the war broke off. A lot of them homies, a lot of them soldiers got the CIA schooling type of way, the militant schooling type of way. And when they AWOL, they took that training with them, of course. Like I said, you cannot unlearn something that you already learned and you put in practice. So Bryan then became our focus, and the reason why was because Travieso came around. So Big Travieso, if I'm not mistaken, he's Salvadorian. So when Big Travieso, Spider from Bryan, there was another guy from Bryan, was a big hitter back in the days. I'm trying to remember his name, man. I know Big Travieso, Spider from Bryan, Snoopy from Bryan. There was one guy that his name escaping me. I'm not 100%. His name was Frost or Sapo, one of those two, Frog or Sapo, but it was one of those two. He was a homeboy from El Salvador that came here and didn't want to follow the 13 rules or didn't want to get the 13, so he went with them. And he showed them our tactic ways, our pegadas. Like he showed the way how you can. He gave him a little bit of knowledge because he was a homeboy in El Salvador. When he got here, he didn't want to keep doing the homeboy thing, so he went and started. He aligned himself with the Norteños, so he was teaching them a lot. And he gave them a lot of their inside game, an inside scoop, the minutes that developed, the way we move. And the reason why I say that, because we later on got informed of that by his sister. And here's what our hate grew. We happened to go to church, hood church, one time. And they somehow figure out where we were having the church. And when I tell you these fools pull up, one car deep, about 4 of them in the car. When I tell you these fools pull up to do their thug thizzle, I'm telling you this fool pulled up to do their thug thizzle. They fools hopped out. Bryan Street was the name that they said. And next thing you know, that shit was horrifying. They were letting it loose. They were not playing. They got answered back once we were able to take cover and shit. But them dudes were what I give them, the way they move, they spread out in the militant mind way, and then they hit her, and they were precise. A couple of the homeboys got touched. Fortunately, never lost one at that day. But they were, the way they get down, that's when we noticed we were out against the enemy that was known for that. And because of that, the 3 homies that got touched that night, we grew the hate because of them. So we went back that same night. Nothing could have got done because of the police movement and everything. The next day, I heard through the grapevines that the homeboys went to knock on doors and caught one. You know what I mean? But that's how that back and forth took. It went on for a good, pretty 6-7 months, which it was like an everyday thing. They will come, we will go. They will come, we will go. They will come, we will go. It was back and forward, and them fools never let out. Them fools never let up. So, like I said, I tip my hat to people. I give Caesar what Caesar deserves. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand that you gotta respect. You had to have some type of respect for your ops or for your enemies because they were putting it down. They caught one of my homeboys. When I saw it close, to me was when they caught my homeboy Triste. Dude got off the car and he came on the back entry of Little Park. Little Park is set up in a different kind of weird way. If you're coming towards 20, like I show you guys on my live, there's an alley where you can park. And then there's the entrance back then. The entrance back then didn't have the gate that I show you guys. And then on the other side, by 19 in Valencia side, we always had the black gate there. But before they start renovating and did the little touch up, before that, there used to be a huge tree that you couldn't see if people will bend the corner coming like from like let's say Valencia, they're coming from 20th and Valencia, they bend the corner there, you couldn't really see that many people. But then you had two alleys there. You had an alley that I showed you guys where we used to post up and get face, and then you had another alley right in the middle between 19 and 20 going towards Dolores Park. Those two alleys were dangerous point because sometimes dude would come through that way and we would never see it until they literally would just park in front of the park, get out and start letting off. Because like I said, we used to post up a lot on that little ramp that I show you guys where we used to post up. And we were close there because we used to keep our babies close there. You know what I mean? So that night, we were deep, probably like about 8 or 9 deep. And for some reason, that night, the dude that was in the park, they used to take care of the park, he had turned up the music loud. He was vibing. It was a Friday night. He was vibing. He was doing things. So the music was pretty loud. All of us, back then, they used to have inside. Like people that know the little park inside there, the little recreation center, they used to have computers. So we used to go there and check MySpace, check Moco Space, High Five, all those stuff, right? So when we finished playing soccer that day, we were playing soccer that day, me and a few other individuals. We went through and we literally walked through inside the spot and nobody turned around to look, nothing. So I looked at my homeboy, Slow Peasy, and I said, bro, we just walked through like literally up to these fools. These fools did not turn around, did not look back, nothing. He's like, because the music is loud, bro. They cannot hear keys, they cannot hear movement. I'm like, yeah, but they're sleeping, bro. Like, somebody could actually walk in from the back and literally walk through, just tak, 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 and gone, be up out of here. Like, yeah, the screen of the computer sometimes would show off, like, the reflection, but it was still a dangerous position to be in. So, and we didn't have nobody post up on the 19 side that day, which was a slip off from our side, too. So, we tell the homies, like, hey, fool, just be through, like, don't try to tell that fool lower the music. We finna go get something to eat, and then we come back. So as we saying that, the gate that I show you guys, the gate that goes inside the park, was not locked. Right in front of that gate, my homeboy was talking to a hyena. My homeboy Triste was talking to a hyena, and two other homeboys were like in a little thing. I will show you guys when I do the hood vlogs. There's a wall that gives you about that much room, space, a little bit like that, for you to put your bag on it. You could be macking or whatever, right? So there's a couple homeboys there talking, and the homeboys trying to get out of hyena, and there's a homeboy in the swings right next to some tires that we used to put our babies to, right? But there's kids in the parking still, because a lot of mothers back then in late night, they used to take the kids and know that we were good, because we always used to look out for kids. We're never going to start some shit up with kids that are there. We always used to have that respect, right? But that night, when we got into, this is what happened. So I see a car parked, and the reason why I catch my mind, because as soon as I walked in, I heard the door is shut, right? So I looked over and I see a dude with a hoodie all the way here, and he's like looking. So I stop on my tracks and I'm like, is that a homie playing a joke? 'Cause we used to play a lot of jokes on the homie, just trying to see if they were on point, if they were trucha, right? So I'm like, I tap my homie and I'm like, fool, who's that fool? Before he could answer me, he spaced that shit all the way to the gate. And because the music was loud, my homeboy Triste back is to him. He didn't see him. So dude try to open the gate, and from the gate to where my homie was staying is probably maybe like a good 7 or 8 feet. I mean, walking distance. Like take 8 or 10 walk steps. I mean. So when he tried to open the gate, my homeboy looked around, and then dude pulls out. When dude pulls out, I'm like, oh shit. So I yell at Tristan like, trucha fool. So he looked back towards old boy. Old boy pulls out. When Tristan turns around to trying to like get covered behind that big wall, dude shot. Bah! Hit him right in the back. I'm like, we just see him stumble. So we did back to the inside of the thing to where the backpacks were at, the babies were kept. And as we did back, he shoots like 3 times more. Boom, boom, boom. But see, the way they did it was like he got dropped off here, and then they were waiting for him in the other corner on the 20th and Valencia side. So this dude walked the park. So there's a door by there. So the homeboys pull asleep through the door and lock the door. That's the little office where the people that take care of the park locks themselves in. That's their little office. They pull him in, and this fool took off running. So we locked the other door so he don't come in, and we don't know what we had. It sounded like a 22, but we're not sure. So we locked them big 2 gate doors. We locked them because the dude that was there like, hey, no saquen nada, don't do nothing, no, don't pull out nothing. Not here, man, not here. He's all paniqueado. He don't let us do nothing. And that's our little spot, so we don't want to burn him, so we don't pull out nothing. Then when we see dude, literally, he had the guts, and I give him to walk coming through the alley and walk all the way through, and he looked to where was the other homeboy was at. Besides, he was with his kids. There was a bunch of kids on Mother's Day that were hugging the kids. I don't think he wanted to fire that, and I give him that he didn't fire towards them. He walked all the way through the alley and then out through the field, soccer field, and then went over there. So when we see him pass through a little bit up, we try to open the door to try to chase him. By the time we open the door, he's like waiting for us. I think he knew that we were gonna open the door. He was waiting in the cuts, like, but there's a right that you make to go to the bathrooms. He's hidden there. So when we opened the doors and we picked out, bah, he let off again. I'm like, oh, that motherfucker, he's right there. We can't do this. This is a spot we can literally come out and look because he's gonna hit us. So he let off 2 more times and then walks through the soccer field. He takes off running. The paisa whole grabbing their backs, the whole like against the gate, like we don't bet, no rifamos. So he take off running. So once we hear like ya está corriendo, the paisa like he's running. Once we hear that, we open the door and come out and take off chasing it. He was driving like a little beat up Honda that you still hello quick, and they go. That's what Brian was for us. Them fools had the guts like that. Them fools who got out the car and be like, "What's up, fool? Wanna fade up?" Like just get on. What's up, fool? Pull out a big ass fierro and just like, "What's up, fool?" Going at it with fear. That was Brian for us. So, and we will go up there and do the same shit to them. See, that was the back and forward years that we had, and that's why I said Brian was a little bit more hands on. Yeah, LNS gave us problems, but LNS was known for shooting from the cars. It was rare that they would get out of the cars. It was rare, and I'm not meaning this and not disrespect, but it was rare to do it. Brian instead had a different motive. Them fools would get out, they would try to get close to you, they would try to come in there, make sure they knock on the right door, and LNS was not like that. They would just, if it was a crowd, they would let off to the crowd, whatever, that's what happens. But Brian was a different. That's why I think the animosity between us and them was brutal. So when I went into county jail, it continued. Every time we'll see a Brian Tero, we'll get off. Every time they catch one of us sleeping, they will get off. There was not a lot of Brian fools that would rank it. You run across here and there. Some fools from 21st in Alabama, or some fools from 24, some fools from Persida Park or Persia Park over there by 30, 25th. They will rank it. And we know the one Norteños, so we would just slap them and leave them. Because if you're ranking it, homie, that's it. There's not much. We would slap you around a couple times, but there was no point. Just try to be bully, But Brian was the type of individuals like that would never rank it. When I was in juvenile, the same thing, bro. I had most of my fight was Brian fools. And then a couple dudes that got busted from Hayward and Broward City County that were coming there. But most of my fights were Brian. That's why I said the dude that we really went at it with the most was Bryan Street, 22nd and Bryan Street, the Hot Boys. You know what I mean? Backstreet Boys, they used to call themselves. But it's true, them fools they had a lot of hitters. Little Travieso was one of them. When Little Travi came into the picture and his brother Big Travi, them fools were known. And them fools were known for knocking shit down. Sometimes they wouldn't hit us, they would miss us and actually hit a couple other people. And unfortunately, they hit a few homies from 16 and a few homies from 19. When they hit the homie Trompo from 16, that was because due to an incident that had happened prior, they were two with us and them, and they tried to came down trying to do what they had to do. They didn't catch us. They missed the homie. The same thing happened with Coco. So it was like left in there. I'm not saying that that's happened, but it was unfortunate, and that's why I said that Brian dudes always had so what of my respect, because them dudes never ranked it. Them dudes will always fight. Them fools will always throw down, and they were like us a lot. They didn't need 10 or 15 people around them. If it was one of them, it's four of us. That fool was like, "What's up, fool? Let's get it in." And that was the neighborhood, at least to me, that I beefed up with the most and that gave me the hardest the problems because of incidents like that. Or sometimes they will pull out, driving, hopped out the car. "What's up, fool? You fools, la la la." And they disrespect us. We put a Brian. He home like, "What's up then, fool? Let's get on." We'll get out of it. And I given that. See, their thing is that they had the same respect we have for them. If they will come up and say, "Fool, let's chunk," you could chunk with them. It was never that they will pull up a strap or they will hit you up with a knife. It was never like that. When they will come up and say, "Fool, what's up, fool? Let's 3-on-3, fool." Then they will get off. So it was never a thing where like let's 3-on-3 and somebody will come up and start dumping. They didn't have that type of mentality. And that's why I always used to say, man, hey, it takes huevos to come to somebody's neighborhood and call people out. It takes balls, man. It takes courage. And that was one of the neighborhoods. That was just one of the incidents of many that I went through with them that I can speak on. Triste got shot in the back. There's a song that got made behind that night after our response, which is called La Noche Maniacada, because of what transpired that night. I mean, it's pretty boldy. There's still some cases open, which unfortunately I can't speak on it. But you guys get the hint. We knocked on 3 different people's door. "Hello, how you doing? We're here to do a repo on your car." You know what I mean? That was the type of lifestyle that I left back then. So, I hope I answered you guys the question, who was the Barrio that gave me the blue balls the most, and who was always the most, even in school and juvenile and in the county. I hope I gave you guys a good question. I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys can run them up. And more videos like this to come. I will tell you guys when I got put in the hospital by Brian, street dudes. They're near, they did me dirty. I was in the hospital, I lost conscious. I was in a coma for almost a week behind that incident. So I will tell you guys about that incident. If you guys want to hear, make sure you guys hit the like tab, subscribe, leave a comment if you guys like it. And like I said, I do this video not to glorify the life, because thanks God, by the grace of God, I came home after I did all that time and I'm doing my life thing. But see, you can live your life peacefully now. You can go anywhere you want if you choose to live the right way. And I'm not saying this as a bragging for you guys to go and gangbang or nothing like that, kids. Gangbang in life is not what it does. It's not what it is. Especially now, look at the prison system the way it is. It's messed up. People are dying. People are getting stabbed over misunderstanding. People getting stabbed for being bullied. There's a lot of stuff that's going on. And you don't want to be me. I lost all my youth life being incarcerated since I was 17 all the way to my 30s. I lost the near all my life incarcerated behind actions and decisions that were poor making. So don't make the same mistake, man. Like I always tell you guys, be kind to one another. If you're mad at your loved one, call him, tell him that you love him, because tomorrow is never promised. With that being said, hope you guys like and enjoyed this video. Let's get it, mi gente.